All right, that there is a homemade tender for the T1. I made that out of two New York Central tenders from 464 Hudson. And it hasn't been painted yet. You can, if you look at it right here, you'll see where the coal, where I chopped it and bonded it back together. I used a little Dremel and kind of made pot marks in the glue. What I use is crazy glue and baking soda to form an epoxy. It works very well. I bonded it, filled the holes with the same thing. Stuff's a nightmare to sand. It hardened so strong. And I added a 1/2 inch to the bottom of it. This was the original height of the tender without the wheels, but that was the original, and I added this. What I used was Union Pacific Rivarossi that I had no use for, shell. I cut it, scored it really tight with a razor blade, really hard, and snapped it and sanded it down. Used all the sections. If you look in here, you'll see some of the epoxy, some of it got painted black. You can see that line. That's where I bonded it. The back half is two 464 Hudson tenders. I cut that, extended it because it needed to be about 2 inches, and the rest is all this coal stuff. Now, as far as the top of the Union Pacific piece here, what I did was I cut out the back. Not only is that at the back of this train, but it's also the back of the tender. You gotta neaten that up a little bit. And you can see the doors. I don't even know if that tender is supposed to have them, but I left them in there anyway. Then I took a section of the roof, this here, and I bonded it here, and then I cut a hole in it. This is the hole. It's supposed to have a hole. This is to scale, 7.5 inches long. It's about 1/16 of an inch longer than it should be. I don't know how that happened, but oh well. I have the ladders and everything I'm going to put back. Eventually I'm going to paint this that orange and red it's supposed to be and add all the stuff that it's supposed to be up there. But this is so far so good. Now the tender bottom is 2 tenders cut and added. Now, as you can see, I have 4 wheels there, 4 axles instead of 3. I cut off a section. I did not have a matching section. I'm going to paint it anyway, so you really won't be able to tell. Not to mention it's hidden underneath the skirt. Bonded that with crazy glue and baking soda, so it's extremely strong. This plastic wheel is just in there for now. I got to get another set of metal wheels. Now, this whole train was built out of, the tender was built from leftover parts that I used. I didn't use the tenders when I made a frame for Bachmann, a chassis for Bachmann's daylights, the GS4. I chopped a bunch of rivarossi frames up to do those. And actually, what I built out of this was the junk parts that I had left over, the worst of the worst, is actually how I built this. So it took a hell of a lot more tweaking than to get it to run right, because the frame, the chassis was, the frame was worn and the axles were worn. One of the axles that had the gear on it had a groove cut into it, so I pulled the rims off and I tinned the brass and soldered it, and then used emery cloth to round it back out. That is actually this axle here. it worked pretty well. It doesn't wobble or anything amazing. Now, if you'll see, you look at that wheel right there, right? You can see if you look through the cutouts, there's spokes there. I had to replace, I had a bad driver, and I ordered new ones. I haven't gotten them yet. So for now, what I did was I plotted out some black flat vinyl. I duplicated the pattern in the rim, and I slapped vinyl on top of that. So from far, when unless you're looking at it close up, you really can't tell. I could leave it like that. I probably won't. Eventually, I want it cleaned up. I still have the metal handrails that have to be put on. I still have the headlight that's got to go in there. I've just been working on getting it to run correctly. Originally, I thought that it might have a bad gear because the front tires were spinning before it would move, and then it would start moving. And I did have some issues with some of the gears were a little bit sharp. You could feel them with your fingers. Once I started running it for a while, the problem kind of went away. And then I forgot that this front wheel here has the original crappy traction tire on it, and the back one has a rubber one. So this doesn't really get a lot of traction. That could be why it would spin before it would move the train. Not sure. Work in progress. But anyway, the tender, I had to figure out the height and everything. Let me pop this in here. Trying to do this with one hand. It's close enough for now, I guess. Really not sitting around there right, but so that's the tender. It's got roughly the same shape as the roof line. I didn't make it absolutely perfect because I'm not at work and I didn't have a belt sander. So I had to sand it by hand. But that's it. Now I'm going to go paint it. And we'll have another video later. Thank you.